Please take the coat off. Right, these demons who are there. And Dante, we saw at the end of 8, is not able to convince them to let them pass. So they're waiting. What are they waiting for at the end of 8 and in the first part of 9? Right, they're waiting for some help from heaven. Dante had said at the end of 8 that someone was coming. And here they're still waiting at the beginning of 9. So we see some other characters here at the walls of the city of Dis in Canto 9. Who else do we see? So we'd seen these demons, this horde of demons at the end of Canto 8. And here at 9, who else do we see? Whom else do we see on the walls of Dis?
The Irinis?
The Irinis, yeah, also known as the...
Aren't they the three-headed, the Medusa?
The Hellish Furies?
The Furies, yeah, the Furies is the other name for them. That's what the Greek name means. They see the Furies, and who else makes an appearance? What other figure from Greek mythology? Medusa, right. After Medusa and the Furies, what then happens? As Dante and Virgil are there.
Right.
What then happens at the bottom of 150 and the top of 151?
You're talking about when they start describing that dirty water?
So there's some discussion of the water of the stairs, something to something else. This is a metaphor here.
Not algae, what is it?
Scum. Yeah, it's got scum on it. But why are we talking about the sticks? They've already passed the sticks.
Because the souls, the shop souls.
Yeah, what's going on with the souls in the sticks right now? The souls being punished for wrath. Say it again. They're scared. What are they scared of? This angel that's coming, right. And there's this comparison saying the souls are like frogs in a gross pond when a snake comes. They all hide under the water. So here are these souls being punished for wrath, and we saw them when Dante was crossing the Styx. We saw them reaching up out of the boat and grabbing at him and each other. Yes, and so this angel arrives, and what does he do on page 151? What does this angel do once he arrives?
Walking on the water.
He comes across the Styx walking on the water. He's not riding the boat. Yes, we get this reference to the scriptures here. And then what does he do once he crosses the Styx?
You open the gate.
Right, he goes and opens the gate. He reached the gate, line 89. He reached the gate and touched it with a wand. It opened without resistance from inside. And then he speaks to the devils here, the demons. And then he leaves. And we left off last time, lines 100 to 102. He turned then and retraced the squalid path. Squalid means dirty. Without one word to us. And on his face the look of one concerned and spurred by things that were not those he found surrounding him. And then we started moving toward the city in the safety of the holy words pronounced. All right, so now we're going to cross through the gates of Dis with Dante and Virgil. So if you look on page 148, this is another good page to bookmark or dog ear or something. Put a post-it or something on there. Because here we have this map of the middle section of hell. Violence, the sins of the lion. And we'll see, again, you see there the dotted line where Dante and Virgil go. You see it starting with the gate of Dis at the top. You get the Furies and the Gorgons, the Gorgon there, Medusa. And then there's the path that they're going to trace with the next series of souls being punished. And we'll see the first of these here at the end of Canto 9 in circle number 6. Who's in circle number 6 that we're about to see? If you look at the map on 148, who's here in circle 6? Heretics. What are heretics? What is a heretic? Heretic is someone who has...
Oh, wait, the gate of this is like the beginning of the middle section?
Yes, it's the beginning of the middle section of hell. So here, notice we've got the walls of Dis form the outside barrier of this middle section. And then if you look at the very middle where there's that black pit, we read the Great Barrier, which separates this middle section of hell from the bottom section of hell, the worst section of hell. So the heretics here in this first section, we'll read about them in a second. Heretics, a heretic is someone who's committed the sin of heresy is the name of the sin. I don't know what heresy is. False teaching, more or less, specifically about what kinds of things? About religious things, right? So heresy, specifically in its most precise sense, is when someone rejects some divinely revealed truth. Is heresy. And so here, for this sin, which Dante here puts with sins of violence, it's not a type of fraud. Apparently these people were not trying to deceive people, but they were stubborn in this. And here it's a sin of violence, rather than a sin of fraud, of deception, or a sin of incontinence or concupiscence. Well, so fraud, yeah. So fraud involves a kind of deception. These people are, I guess, sincere in their
So they really believe.
opinions here. Yeah, but so why is heresy a kind of violence though? Why can't they end up in limbo with the other non-Christians?
Because they don't believe in the God.
If people disagree with them,
Yes. So, well, a couple of things. One, first off, a lot of these are Christian heretics, so they're baptized, so they can't go to limbo. Yeah. So you could possibly, right. So a Muslim could go to limbo, but not a Christian. But maybe a Muslim could also end up with the heretics. But heresy here, in addition to this sort of intellectual aspect of it, of denying some or refusing to believe some divinely revealed truth, also has a violent aspect to it in that it causes division. Punished here, starting on, so we'll go back to page 151, starting with line 106. We entered there, and with no opposition. And I, so anxious to investigate the state of souls locked up in such a fortress, once in the place allowed my eyes to wander, and saw in all directions spreading out a countryside of pain and ugly anguish. As at Arles, where the Rhone turns to stagnant waters, or at Pola near Cornero's Gulf that closes Italy and baits her confines, the sepulchres make all the land uneven. So they did here, strewn in all directions, except the graves here served a crueler purpose. For scattered everywhere among the tombs were flames that kept them glowing far more hot than any iron an artisan might use. Each tomb had its lid loose, pushed to one side, and from within came forth such fierce laments that I was sure inside were tortured souls. I asked, Master, what kinds of shades are these lying down here, buried in the graves of stone, speaking their presence in such dolorous sighs, such painful sighs? And he replied, there lie arch heretics of every sect, with all of their disciples. More than you think are packed within these tombs. Like heretics lie buried with their like, and the graves burn more or less accordingly. Then turning to the right, we moved ahead between the torments there and those high walls. So the punishment here of the heretics requires a bit of explanation. What did you notice about how they're being punished there? What's involved in this punishment of the heretics? Anything? Pick up anything about them being punished? There are these tombs there. There are flames.
Keep it glowing.
Yes, they're glowing red hot. These burning tombs. And how do they get sorted into their different tombs?
You guess the roof.
Well, the lids are loose.
Pushed to one side.
The lids are loose, pushed to one side. But what determines what tomb a soul goes into? What does Virgil say about them right towards the end there?
A live arch heretic.
Arch heretics means arch means leader. So the leaders of various heresies. They're like arch heretics of every sect, along with what? The arch heretics, the leaders of heresies are there along with their disciples. Meaning
So
they're what?
They're based on where they go.
Namely what?
To this side.
What do you mean? What does this mean? They're disciples.
Uh,
It's a disciple.
Isn't this something with a bad person? Like
Not necessarily.
Follower.
A follower, a student, literally means student. Yes. So they're there with their teachers. Again, we have this sort of perversions of things of good things. This is a city. It's a city of. It's a terrible city. It's a city of hell. And here, instead of having different schools, maybe where different people learn, here the students and their teachers are crammed. The students are crammed with their teachers into these burning hot tombs, depending on what their heresy was. Yes, and so I want to talk a little bit about the top of page 152. What Dante compares these tombs to. He says that it's like Arles, the city in France, where the Rhone turns to stagnant waters. Or is it Poland near Quarnero's Gulf that closes Italy and bathes her confines? The sepulchres make all the land uneven. So both of these places, Arles, the city in France, and Pola in Italy, are cities that are along where a river meets a sea. And what happens when a river reaches the end and it reaches the sea? What changes happen in the river? When you get to the end, how does the depth change?
It's deeper.
Not usually.
From a river to an ocean?
Well, what happens to the river as it gets closer to the ocean?
It's bigger, like water.
Yeah, it gets there's more water. It gets wider. They also tend to spread out when they get near the end. And so near the end of the river, the land is often kind of swampy and marshy and soggy. The elevation is very low, right? The land is not far above sea level, and you've got all this water coming from the river. So think like a lot of parts of Maryland around the Chesapeake Bay, the Atlantic coast. It's low, it's marshy, it's swampy. What problem does this pose when you're burying dead people in these areas?
You said problems?
Yeah, well, how does that cause a problem when you're burying dead people in these areas?
It's not deep.
So
It's more visible.
what's going to happen if you try to dig a grave in this kind of marshy ground?
You get water.
Yeah, it'll start to fill with water. It's hard to dig a deep enough hole. And also, you run into this issue where sometimes there are big storms and the river floods, and then things get moved around, yeah, and things start to float away. So you can't really bury people in this kind of ground. And so the solution here that these two cities use is how did they bury their people? Can you tell here? He says the sepulchres, that means the tombs, make all the land uneven. How could you bury someone if you're living in one of these marshy areas?
You just said you can't.
You can't bury them in the ground.
Burn. You gotta burn?
Not going to be an option for Christians, historically speaking. Cremation, generally not an option for Christians.
You put it in the tomb, just throw it to make it heavy?
So, yeah, so like what?
Like a mummy.
Sort of. Well, what would you put them in?
A tomb? A tomb?
Maybe more than just that. What's a tomb?
Like, isn't it like a vessel casket basically? Like just a nicer version of the casket?
More than that. So here, you put them in stone or concrete boxes above the ground, because then you don't have to dig into the marshy, wet ground, which is not good for digging in, and also you don't have to worry about a flood washing the bodies away.
So isn't that easy to notice?
Say that again?
Isn't that easy for it to be noticed?
Yeah.
Don't you want it not to be noticed?
Well, you want your grave to be you want people to know where people are buried, generally.
They don't want people to step on.
But then you don't have to worry about the bodies floating away. What U.S. city do they do this in? Very famously?
We did this in the US city.
There's a very famous U.S. city. But there's a well-known U.S. city which, among other things, is known for having lots of burials done like this.
Boston?
Not Boston. So it is on the coast. It's where a river enters the ocean. A very large river.
What's the letter of the state?
L.
Louisville? No, Louisiana?
What river ends in Louisiana?
I don't know the rivers in Louisiana.
There's one river in the U.S. that you know.
Mississippi
It should be the Mississippi. Yes, the Mississippi ends and enters the Gulf of Mexico in Louisiana. It has a massive, it's called a delta, where it spreads out and it gets marshy and flat. And what city is there on the delta of the Mississippi River? What city in Louisiana?
Baton Rouge.
Not Baton Rouge, the other one. Yeah, New Orleans. New Orleans is on the delta of the Mississippi River. And in New Orleans, have you ever seen The Princess and the Frog?
Yeah.
The Disney movie? You know the scene towards the end in the cemetery?
Yeah.
Where you have all those, that's how you have to bury people in New Orleans, is you bury them in these tombs above ground because the ground is marshy and because of the floods. Right. So that's what Dante is saying these tombs look like. These tombs that they're buried in are above the ground. They're made of stone. They've also got these flames on them.
Are they really buried?
Say it again?
Are they really buried or are they stored?
Yeah, that's a good question. Are they really buried or are they stored? Yeah, certainly they're not in the ground. Lots of different burial practices and lots of different words for them. Being put in the ground is, the technical term for it is inhumation, from the Latin word in, which means in, and humus, which means the ground, the dirt. Inhumation means putting somebody in the ground as a form of burial. Cremation would be another one, burning the body to ashes. Various
Isn't that a
different
sin?
practices. Cremation, generally speaking, ye Christians have avoided cremation. Say it again?
Doesn't it like destroy what God made?
Yeah, so Christians, remember, believe in the resurrection of the body, that the body comes back to life. And so as a sign of, I mean, obviously, it's not like God couldn't take a cremated body and bring it back to life. Right? It's not like it's something that he couldn't do, but it's a sign of waiting for the body to be resurrected. Yes, Christians traditionally do not practice cremation, but they bury the body whole. The word cemetery means a resting place. This idea of death as rest and then coming back to life after the rest, compared to sleeping. So yes, traditionally Christians do not practice cremation; they practice inhumation, or other types of burial that don't involve leaving the body more or less as is. So that has started to change a bit in recent years, but anyway, we'll get into that. Okay, questions here about Canto 9. The Dante and Virgil go walking along. In Canto 10, they'll spend some time seeing some of the heretics. In Canto 10, we won't read 10. Canto 10. Canto 10. Heretics continued. In 11, we get we're still the heretics. There's a great map on 172. Another one of these things that's good to bookmark. That shows you the whole of Dante's hell all in one map. So if you look at that quickly, you'll see that even within the city of Dis, there's a gap between the heretics and these other sins of violence. Heresy is kind of set off from the rest of them. Maybe we could say it's sort of similar to the way that the sins of indecision are set off, the indecisive are set off in the vestibule from the rest of hell. It's not quite violence in the same way, heresy. Say it again?
Oh, I just have a question.
Yep.
Oh, are we eating inside now?
I think so. Yep. All right. So we're going to skip to 12.
Oh, we're not reading 10?
No, we're not going to read 10 or 11. So really 10 and 11 are both more of the heretics. We're going to skip to 12, where they descend to, if you look at that map on 172, or even better, the one on 88. So we're looking at the map on 88. No, not 88. That's the first map. I'm sorry. What is it? 140. Say it again.
72, the map.
No, what's the map of the? Yeah, 148.
Oh.
Yeah, 148. You get the map of the middle section of hell. They're going to cross down into Circle 7. Now, Circle 7. Notice you look at the map there. So Circle 6 of hell, the 9 circles of hell, is the heretics. But then they go down this slope, and Circle 7 is made up of 3 parts, 3 rings, making up this one circle. And so at this point, starting here, these circles start to be subdivided. A lot of them, these 9 circles. But here, this one's divided into 3. The number 3 keeps coming up. Hell is a perversion of heaven. And heaven is intimately connected with the number 3, being, why 3? What's the 3? 3. Why is the number 3 important for Dante? The Trinity, right? The 3 persons of the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So these 3s keep coming up. Even the 9 circles of hell. Right? There are 9. 9 is 3 times 3. So here, Circle 7 is further divided. Notice it's the 7th circle. Maybe we could say something about that. It's divided into 3 sections. And so we'll see each of these sections starting in Canto 12. So
Where do you see Circle 7 at?
Circle 7, notice here on the left, this is Circle 7, Circle VII, and it cuts across those 3 rings. There's Ring 1, River Phlegethon, Ring 2, Wood of the Suicides, Ring 3, the Burning Sand. Those are all part of the same circle of hell, the same level of hell.
I'm trying to be happy.
That would be a good thing to read also.
What book I want to read next?
Good question. I would be open to doing one of the other sections. Definitely be open to that. But the goal is to finish this by this quarter. So notice, in terms of circles, you say there's 9 circles of hell. Well, we're only in Canto 12, and he's already passed through the first 6. His progress in terms of through the circles slows down at this point. It gets harder and harder to get down to the bottom the further you get. These circles start to be subdivided into smaller sections. There are more barriers between them. We had this major barrier of the city of Dis. There's a slope that he goes down. You see that these squiggly lines between Circle 6 and Circle 7? That's a steep cliff that they have to go down to get down to Circle 7. And then there's the Great Barrier after that between Circles 7 and 8. All right, so go to Canto 12 on page 176. I'll get you guys the questions for this tomorrow. But we're going to keep making progress here.
Hey, what's this?
What's what? So that's a map of all of hell. What's it, 172? There's another good one to...
So Canto 9 is not due tomorrow.
Canto 9 is due tomorrow. We finished 9.
They do tomorrow.
So
I'm sure we already got the paper, I'm sure.
Yeah, you got it the other day. So 172, you get the whole thing. If you want to see, it's kind of a bit of a spoiler, but that's okay. We're crossing from, you see the city of Dis and Heresy, and then there's that cliff, and we get down to Circle 7 here with Phlegethon and all that. This is the next of the rivers of hell. We had the Acheron first, then we had the Styx, with the souls of wrath, and then the Phlegethon here. These souls who committed sins of violence. Page 176, Canto 12. They descend the steep slope into the 7th circle by means of a great landslide, which was caused when Christ descended into hell. At the edge of the abyss is the Minotaur, who presides over the circle of the violent, and whose own bestial rage sends him into such a paroxysm of violence that the 2 travelers are able to run past him without his interference. At the base of the precipice, the cliff, they see a river of boiling blood, which contains those who have inflicted violence upon others. But before they can reach the river, they are intercepted by 3 fierce centaurs, whose task it is to keep those who are in the river at their proper depth by shooting arrows at them if they attempt to rise. Virgil explains to one of the centaurs, Chiron, that this journey of the pilgrim and himself is ordained by God, and requests him to assign someone to guide the two of them to the ford in the river and carry the pilgrim across it to the other bank. Chiron gives the task to Nessus, one of the centaurs, who, as he leads them to the river's ford, points out many of the sinners there in the boiling blood. So the seventh circle, there's this cliff, and they're going to have to get down it. It's too steep for Dante to climb down. Remember, he, unlike Virgil, still has his body, so he has to keep these things in mind. Heads up. Canto 12:3. Starting from the beginning. Not only was that place where we had come to descend craggy, but there was something there that made the scene appalling to the eye. Like the ruins this side of Trent left by the landslide, an earthquake or erosion must have caused it, that hit Adige on its left bank. When from the mountain's top where the slide began to the plain below, the shattered rock slipped down, shaping a path for a difficult descent. So was the slope of our ravine's formation. And at the edge along the shattered chasm, there lay stretched out the infamy of Crete, the son conceived in the pretended cow. When he saw us, he bit into his flesh, gone crazy with the fever of his rage. My wise guide cried to him, "Perhaps you think you see the Duke of Athens come again, who came once in the world to bring your death? Be gone, you beast, for this one is not led down here by means of clues your sister gave him. He comes here only to observe your torments. The way a bull breaks loose the very moment he knows he has been dealt the mortal blow, and cannot run but jumps and twists and turns, just so I saw the Minotaur perform. And my guide, alert, cried out, 'Run to the pass!' While he still rides with rage, gets started down. I was deep in thought when he began. Are you perhaps thinking about these ruins, protected by the furious beast I quenched in its own rage? Now let me tell you that the other time I came down to the lower part of hell, this rock had not then fallen into ruins. But certainly, if I remember well, it was just before the coming of that one who took from hell's first circle the great spoil, that this abyss of stench from top to bottom began to shake. So I thought the universe felt love, whereby some have maintained the world has more than once renewed itself in chaos. This was the moment when this ancient rock was split this way, here and in other places. So they start to climb down this landslide, this rubble from a landslide down the cliff. And what do they see here on page 177? What do they see as they're climbing down? Not a bull. Not quite. What is this thing?
A pretended cow.
It has to do with the pretended cow. We'll talk about that in a second. What is this thing called? The figure from Greek myth. Infamy of Crete. Okay, the terrible thing that everybody knows about that comes from the island of Crete. What's it called? The Minotaur. Minotaur things.
Half horse, half human thing?
Not half horse, half man, half what?
Bull.
Yes, bull. Tauros is Greek for bull. Tauros in Latin is bull. And the Minnow part, is from King Minos. So near Greece, in between Greece and Turkey, there's an island called Crete. And on this island of Crete, according to Greek myth, there was once a king named Minos. Minos was very powerful.
Then we just hear about Minos.
So there's also a character Minos who's that's the guy with the tail. This King Minos, he was the king of Crete, and he had some issues, shall we say. Specifically, he had some issues with his wife. His wife was not satisfied with her husband. And so, we read here the son conceived in the pretended cow. So she made a fake cow, and she climbed in it, and a bull came along, and she had a child with that bull. Yes, according to the myth.
Oh,
Wait, what?
Yes,
she got to a cow and the bull just do what they do.
yes. And that's how the Minotaur was born, half man, half bull.
That's how she not die.
That's how the myth goes. And so this is this sort of It's this bastard son of his wife, this bastard monstrous son of his wife. But rather than killing it, Minos locked it up in the labyrinth, this maze, and once a year they'd send some nice young people in there for him to eat. Eventually, a Greek hero named Theseus, that's the Duke of Athens that they're referring to because he was the king of Athens. Theseus came and killed the Minotaur and made his way out of the labyrinth. So the Minotaur is what they see here in this circle of rage. And how does the Minotaur respond when he sees them? When he saw us, what? Line 14.
Saw them.
When he saw them, what?
He
It bit into his flesh.
He bit into his flesh, gone crazy with the fever of his rage. Where did we see somebody biting himself before?
When I don't remember what happened, but someone bit himself, he was turning on himself.
Where was that?
Remember?
The sins of wrath in the river Styx. Filippo Argenti, remember the connection between wrath and violence here. Dante speaks to him, and how does the Minotaur respond to that? So Virgil speaks to him in lines 16 to 21, and then how does the Minotaur respond to that? He's even more angry. What does he act like? He acts like a what? Right after Virgil speaks. Like a bull. Remember, the Minotaur is half man, half bull. He acts like a bull in a bullfight. He knows it's going to die. It's been stabbed with a deadly blow. And instead of running, it just jumps and turns in rage. That's how the Minotaur acts. His anger, his violence is so strong that it prevents him from responding the way that he would like to Virgil and Dante's presence. Notice also the Minotaur, and this is true of many of the figures that we see, particularly in this section of hell. The Minotaur is part man and part animal. And the animal part seems to be winning out. The Minotaur doesn't even speak. He doesn't even speak. He just rages, acts violently against himself, mostly.
So what is it?
His mind is not in control, but rather this animal part of him is in control with the violence.
We're gonna have to make Jenna.
Say it again? Ugh. All right. And then Virgil tells Dante that things are different from the last time that he went down. Remember, Virgil has made this journey before. But what does Virgil say is different from the last time he went down this way? What does he say down there, lines 34 and following?
Yeah, I would say it wasn't there. The rock had not fallen into.
Right, this cliff, this landslide that they're climbing down hadn't yet happened. When did the landslide happen, does he say?
Right.
Say it again? Right, he says, just before the coming of the one who took from hell's first circle the great spoil. So spoil here doesn't mean going bad. It refers to things that you take after you win in a battle, for example. So who's the one who takes this spoil from the first circle of hell, as you said? Christ, right? If the first circle of hell being which part? Limbo, yes. So just before his coming, what happened that caused this landslide? Yes, there's an earthquake. This abyss of stench from top to bottom began to shake. Anyone know what event related to?
Oh, God was angry. Like when Christ died and everything shit.
Yes, right. When Christ is crucified, when he dies, what happens?
Like the sky.
The sky goes dark and there's an earthquake. There's an earthquake at the time of Christ's death. That's why he says just before he came down into limbo. At the time of Christ's death, there's this earthquake. And it breaks parts of hell. including this here, enabling Dante to get down. For Virgil, it wasn't a problem. He's already dead. It's not like he needs to climb down the same way. All right. And he says, this ancient rock was split this way here and in other places. And there are other places where we'll see some of the damage from that earthquake. Hell itself was damaged. Line 46, top of page 178. But now look down the valley. Coming closer, you will see the river of blood that boils the souls of those who through their violence injured others. O blind cupidity and insane wrath, spurring us on through our short life on earth to steep us then forever in such misery. I saw a river, wide, curved like a bow, that stretched, embracing all the flat land there, just as my guide had told me to expect. This is the last of the rivers of hell. The third river of hell in Greek mythology, the Phlegethon. And what is the Phlegethon filled with? What's in the Phlegethon River?
Blood.
What kind of blood?
The boils the souls.
Boiling blood. It's not a river of water. The Akron, the first river, we don't really get much described about it. I guess it's a fairly normal looking river. The Styx is dirty and mucky and filthy and gross. The Phlegethon is completely unlike a river. It's made of boiling blood. I guess it's like a river insofar as it's liquid that's in there. But boiling blood. And what kind of souls are being punished there?
People that their violence against others.
Violence against others. Yes. Violence against others.
Where do you think that would be?
Say it again.
Where do you think that would be?
I think he'd be in Ptolemais. Ptolemais is people who committed, who betrayed their countries. That's down almost at the very bottom of hell. That's what I say, Ptolemais. We'll get there. Okay, so yes, boiling blood and violence against others. Why is boiling blood a good choice here? Besides the fact that it's a great image. I mean, that's like exactly what we in our minds want hell to look like. Rivers of boiling blood. What makes it appropriate here, though, for people who committed sins of violence against others?
They did somebody, so they're repeating what they did.
So, yeah, but why boiling blood in particular?
Blood in their hands.
Yeah, blood on their hands. Violence, we mean physical violence here, for the most part. Literal blood. Blood on your hands. You know, if you're guilty of somebody's death, you have blood on your hands. Here, it's not just on their hands, it's all over them, we'll see.
Burn the soul.
Yeah, it makes it more painful. Why burning in particular?
It's not pleasing.
Yeah, it's not pleasant.
It's just like the
Is being,
short temper.
right, if somebody's hot-tempered, they're short-tempered, they get angry easily. And so here, this anger, this violence, is with heat. We saw the heretics' tombs glowing because they're so hot. So the heat here is a theme of this section of hell. Okay, we'll take a closer look at the Phlegethon tomorrow. It's river of boiling blood. This is one of my favorite images in the Inferno. Is this particular circle of hell? It's 3 sections. I think it are very well crafted. All right, thank you very much. Canto 9 for tomorrow. Response paper for Friday.